The skies above Earth's major cities darkened as the Krallic warships materialized from hyperspace. Massive, biomechanical structures resembling hornet nests crossed with battleships. On global broadcasts, the feed from the UN General Assembly was hijacked by the Krallic ambassador, a 9-foot insectoid whose chittering translator delivered their ultimatum. You have 7 planetary rotations to submit to the glory of the Krallic Empire, or witness the harvesting of your world. Maya Rice watched the broadcast from her Montana cabin, a bottle of whiskey half empty beside her. 3 years into retirement, she'd almost convinced herself the nightmares from the Europan campaign had faded. Almost. The aliens' compound eyes reminded her too much of the things they'd found beneath the ice. Her secure phone buzzed, a device she'd hoped never to hear again. The voice on the other end was terse. Talon protocol activated. Extraction team en route. 30 minutes later, a black tiltrotor touched down in her yard, rotors whipping the spring wildflowers into a frenzy. The 2 soldiers who approached wore no insignia. Commander Reyes. One nodded. Your country needs you. Not a commander anymore, she replied, grabbing her go-bag from beside the door, the one she told herself she was keeping only out of habit. As of 400 hours, you were reactivated. Full clearance, direct report to SECDEF. The Rocky Mountain Complex had been built during the Cold War, forgotten during the peace, and hastily recommissioned when the first Krallic scout ship had been detected near Jupiter 3 months ago. Maya was escorted through 7 security checkpoints before reaching the central chamber, where representatives from 5 nations stood around a holographic display of the Krallic flagship. The Secretary General of the UN looked like he hadn't slept in days. Commander Reyes, thank you for coming. Doesn't seem like I had much choice, she replied, eyeing the Russian and Chinese generals with suspicion. They'd been adversaries in the South China Sea standoff just last year. The situation has rendered old conflicts irrelevant, the Chinese general said, noticing her gaze. We face extinction if we cannot set aside our differences. The Secretary General nodded to a lab technician who brought forward a sealed container. Inside floated a vial of iridescent blue fluid. 3 weeks ago, a Krallic scout ship crashed in Siberia, the Russian general explained. We recovered this before their cleanup crew arrived. Dr. Emeka Okafor, a slender man in a rumpled lab coat, stepped forward. Royal pheromones, he said with barely contained excitement. The Krallic operate through hierarchical chemical signaling. This is essentially their highest security clearance. And why am I here? Maya asked, though she was beginning to suspect. The Secretary General activated a different hologram, this one showing the interior layout of the flagship, focusing on a chamber near its center. This is the King Emperor's personal sanctum. According to intelligence gathered from 17 prior conquests, the Krallic execute the same protocol for each world they subjugate. They expect us to send a surrender delegation, the American Secretary of Defense continued. A formal capitulation party that the King Emperor personally receives before beginning the seeding of our world. Maya studied the schematics. You want to send a strike team instead of diplomats. Not instead of, the Secretary General corrected. Alongside. The real delegation will distract their attention while you and your team board their flagship, infiltrate the royal chamber, and extract the King Emperor. Extract, not eliminate. Killing him would only transfer power to the next in succession, Dr. Okafor explained. But capturing him, his voice trailed off, the implications clear. Maya stared at the holographic display, tracing possible infiltration routes with her finger. You realize this is insane. Even if we could get aboard, even if we could reach him, how would we get back out with an alien king as a hostage? The Secretary of Defense smiled grimly. That's why we needed the best, Commander. We have a plan for that too. In the silence that followed, Maya realized they were waiting for her response. Humanity's last, desperate gambit. When do we start? She asked. Operation Regicide isn't volunteer only on paper, Maya told the Secretary of Defense as they walked the repurposed missile silo corridor. If we force people into this, we've already lost. Her first recruit waited in the briefing room. Lai Chen looked up from his tablet with a scowl, his orange jumpsuit marking him as a military prisoner. "I was told my sentence would be commuted," he said without preamble. "It will be," Maya replied, "if we succeed. If we don't, prison will be the least of your concerns. And my grandmother, already on a transport out of Shanghai, she'll reach safety regardless of the outcome." Lai's shoulders relaxed fractionally. "Then what do you need cracked?" "The most advanced biotechnological encryption system in 17 star systems." A smile crept across his face. Finally, a worthy challenge. Dr. Okafor arrived next, clutching research notes and speaking rapid-fire about Kralik physiology. Their neurotransmitters function similar to a distributed network, with the King Emperor as the central node. "I've been developing a compound that might temporarily disrupt the connection without." "Save the lecture," interrupted Sergeant Ivan Petrov as he strode into the room. His face bore a fresh scar from temple to jaw, still pink and healing. "Tell me about their weak points. How do they die?" Maya observed the tension immediately. Petrov represented everything Lai had fought against as a hacktivist: military authoritarianism, blind nationalism, and Okafor's Nigerian accent seemed to trigger a subtle tightening around Petrov's eyes. Before she could intervene, the final team member arrived. Fatima al-Zoraini entered carrying structural schematics, her hijab contrasting with her Western-style tactical clothing. "The support structures in their hive ships follow fractal patterns," she said, not bothering with introductions as she spread the diagrams across the table. "Their biomechanical systems are redundant, but there are node points where—" "We don't need an engineering lecture from a woman who still covers her head like it's the Dark Ages," Petrov muttered in Russian. The room fell silent. Fatima's eyes narrowed dangerously. "I understood that," she replied in flawless Russian. "And for your information, I wear this by choice, just as I chose to abandon my family's wealth and position when they demanded I stop studying harem alien technology." "We all have our sacrifices," Petrov said, suddenly switching to English. 3 weeks I survived inside that wreckage on Europa. 21 days drinking condensation and eating what you might call alien fungi. My entire unit died. So forgive me if I'm not in the mood for lectures from any of you." Maya slammed her hand on the table. "Save it. You can hate each other after we save humanity. Petrov, your combat experience in alien environments is irreplaceable. Fatima, your structural analysis gives us our only shot at navigating their flagship. Lai, we need your skills to hijack their systems. And Dr. Okafor's xenobiology research is the only reason we have a prayer of getting close to the king." She pointed to the prototype vessel visible through the observation window. A modified SpaceX capsule with disturbing organic components grafted onto its hull. "That's the asterisk, Trojan horse asterisk. It's our ticket aboard, and it keeps failing atmospheric tests. We have 5 days to make it work or we're all dead anyway." The team dispersed to their assignments, tension thick enough to cut. That night, Maya found Fatima and Petrov arguing heatedly in the prototype bay. "My country and yours were aiming nukes at each other when the Kralik showed up," Fatima was saying. "If you can't get past your prejudice for humanity's survival, then the bugs have already won." Maya was about to intervene when she saw Petrov offer Fatima a flask of contraband vodka. After a moment's hesitation, she accepted. "To killing bugs," he toasted. "To unlikely alliances," she countered. In the lab section, Dr. Okafor approached Maya with grim resolve. "I've made a breakthrough," he said quietly. "The Kralik communicate with their ships through pheromone signatures. Our vessel needs a biological component to pass their security." "What kind of component?" "Human Kralik hybrid hormones. I can synthesize them, but I need raw materials." He swallowed hard. "My pituitary gland would work. The extraction procedure has a 30% survival rate." "That's not an option," Maya began. "With all due respect, Commander," Okafor interrupted, None of us expected to survive this mission anyway. Vital signs stable. The medical tech announced as Dr. Okafor regained consciousness, a bandage covering the incision at the base of his skull. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then sharpening with determination despite the pain. "Did it work?" he asked, voice raspy. Maya nodded, showing him the cultivation chamber where his extracted hormones combined with the Kralik pheromones, creating an iridescent fluid that pulsed with bioluminescence. "The Trojan horse passed 3 consecutive atmosphere tests," she confirmed. "The organic components recognize your hybrid hormone signature as authorized personnel." Above them, Earth's final day of freedom ticked away. The official diplomatic shuttle was already preparing for departure. 6 nations' representatives dressed in formal attire, ostensibly traveling to present Earth's surrender. The real mission launched from the dark side of the moon, away from the Kralik's constant surveillance. The hybrid vessel hummed with organic vibrations as they approached the Kralik flagship. Dr. Okafor lay in the medical bay, connected via neural interface to the ship's biological components, a risky procedure he'd insisted on despite his weakened state. "Their biology recognizes hierarchy above all else," he explained through the comms. "I've programmed our approach signature to register as a nutrient delivery vessel. When we dock, the ship will essentially think we're food." Lai Chen monitored the communication channels. No alert signals. They're completely focused on the diplomatic shuttle. The docking sequence was nothing like the controlled mechanical precision of human spacecraft. The Trojan horse was drawn into what appeared to be a pulsating orifice in the flagship's hull, organic tendrils reaching out to probe their vessel with disturbing intimacy. "Don't resist," Dr. Okafor warned as the team felt the ship shudder. "It's scanning our biochemical signature." After agonizing seconds, the tendrils withdrew, and they were pulled completely inside. The docking bay closed behind them, with a sphincter-like contraction that sealed them in darkness before bioluminescent panels illuminated a corridor that seemed alive, walls that expanded and contracted like breathing lungs. "We're in," Maya transmitted to Earth Command, knowing the signal might not penetrate the organic hull. "Beginning extraction mission." Fatima consulted her adapted schematics. "The ceremonial chamber is 2 levels up, but Dr. Okafor's intelligence suggests the king isn't there." She pointed to a pulsating neural pathway. "He's in the reproductive sanctum, 4 levels down. These appear to be transport veins, the ship's circulatory system." "I'm detecting increased activity," Lai warned, monitoring his tablet. "The diplomatic shuttle has docked at the official port. They're creating a diversion, but we have less time than planned." As they advanced through the corridor, they passed translucent sacs embedded in the walls, each containing embryonic forms that twitched when the humans drew near. "Future warriors," Dr. Okafor explained through their comms. "They're partially developed clones, waiting for genetic material from conquered worlds to complete their coding." A patrol of drone workers appeared at the junction ahead, smaller than the warriors they'd seen in transmissions, but still towering over humans. Their compound eyes swiveled toward the intruders, mandibles clicking in alarm. "We've been made," Petrov growled, reaching for his weapon. "Wait," Maya commanded. She stepped forward, removing a vial of the hybrid hormones from her pack and uncapping it. The pheromone release was immediate. The drones froze, antennae twitching in confusion. "They think we're authorized maintenance organisms," Dr. Okafor whispered through the comms. "But it won't last long." Seizing the moment, Maya led the team past the disoriented drones toward what appeared to be a vertical shaft, lined with the same pulsating tissue as the corridors. "This should lead directly to the lower levels," Fatima indicated. As they prepared to descend, a violent shudder ran through the entire ship, nearly throwing them off their feet. "What was that?" Lai demanded, checking his equipment. "The distraction," Maya realized grimly. "Our diplomats just showed their hand." "Change of plans," came Dr. Okafor's strained voice. "The king isn't in the reproductive sanctum anymore. He's moving. their equivalent of battle stations. The neural interface is showing me his location. A pause. He's heading for the ship's primary ganglion, right below us. The vertical shaft pulsed with bioluminescent fluid as the team descended. Fatima's specialized gloves adhered to the membrane walls, allowing her to navigate the alien architecture with surprising agility. The others followed, their grip-enhanced boots squelching against the living tissue. 30 meters to the primary ganglion, she called up. A sudden vibration rippled through the walls. Something was coming, moving fast through the shaft above them. Company, Petrov warned, drawing his weapon. A Guardian-cased Kralik dropped into view, twice the size of the drones they'd encountered earlier. Unlike the workers, this one bore silver-streaked armor plates and 4 razor-edged limbs that clicked against the shaft walls. Its compound eyes locked onto Petrov, who had taken rear position. Instead of sounding an alarm, it attacked with single-minded fury, spitting a stream of yellowish fluid that spattered against the wall where Petrov's head had been a second earlier. The wall sizzled and dissolved on contact. Acid spit. Petrov grunted, returning fire. His bullets glanced off the armored exoskeleton, barely penetrating. Keep moving. Maya ordered the others. Complete the mission. I'll help Petrov. Negative, Petrov countered. This one's mine. The Guardians focused on me now. I'll draw it away. Before Maya could object, Petrov fired his grappling hook into a side passage and swung out of the shaft. The Guardian followed with frightening speed, chittering sounds echoing through the organic corridors. Maya hesitated only a second before continuing downward with the others. The mission had priority. They all knew the risks. In her ear, Petrov's comm remained active. She heard his labored breathing, the sounds of combat. His Russian curses mingled with the aliens' hostile clicks. Found a gravitational recycling chamber, his voice came, strained with effort. The chamber's physics are distorting its movements. The bug can't tell up from down in here. The sound of close-quarters combat followed. Wet impacts, the crack of exoskeleton, Petrov's pain-filled grunt. Then silence. Petrov, report, Maya demanded. Nothing for long seconds. Then, still breathing, Commander. Barely. The bastard has vulnerable breathing holes beneath its arm joints. Had to let it get close enough to stab through them. His voice was weaker now. 3 ribs broken. Shoulder. Not good. Acid got me. We'll extract you on the return, Maya promised, knowing it might be a lie. Meanwhile, Fatima and Lai reached a pulsating node near the bottom of the shaft. Organic technology, unlike anything humans had engineered. Lai removed a specialized device from his pack, attaching neural interfaces to the fleshy components. This should be a communications nexus, he explained, fingers flying across his tablet. If I can interface using the Guardian's biochemical signature from Petrov's sample. His body suddenly went rigid as the neural connection established. His eyes rolled back, images flashing across his tablet. Thousands of worlds, species, conquests. The Kralik hive mind history poured into his human consciousness. Lai tore himself free, vomiting onto the floor. They're not just conquering Earth, he gasped. They're harvesting our neural diversity. Their species is experiencing evolutionary collapse from genetic homogeneity. Dr. Okafor's voice came through their comms, excitement overriding pain. That confirms my analysis of the Guardian's tissue. The Kralik warriors share neurotransmitters with their King Emperor, a chemical form of telepathy. The King doesn't just command them, he experiences through them. Maya processed this revelation. So if we take him, the species will be partially blinded, Okafor confirmed. They'll experience a form of sensory deprivation on a civilization-wide scale. A massive tremor shook the entire ship, nearly dislodging them from the walls. Warning lights pulsed through the organic corridors, and a high-pitched keening vibrated through the vessel. What's happening? Fatima demanded. Lai checked his tablet. Earth forces have launched a nuclear strike against one of the smaller Kralik vessels. It's a desperate move. They're accelerating our timeline. The King Emperor is moving again. Dr. Okafor reported, his neural link to the ship providing real-time intelligence. He's heading for the command nucleus. You've got minutes at most before he's surrounded by every warrior on that ship. Maya made a swift decision. New plan. We intercept him en route. Fatima, quickest path. Fatima studied her schematics. Through the digestive system. It's hazardous, but it's the only way to cut him off in time. Lead the way, Maya ordered, readying her weapons. It's time to meet the king. Breathe through your filters only, Fatima warned, as they entered the digestive tract of the living ship. The passage narrowed into a tunnel-like structure, lined with undulating cilia that secreted a viscous fluid. Phosphorescent organisms clung to the walls, providing eerie blue-green illumination. Acid levels rising, Lai reported, checking his sensors. We've got 8 minutes before our suits begin to degrade. They waded through ankle-deep digestive fluid that bubbled around their boots, passing partially dissolved matter from previous conquered worlds. Technology so advanced it was barely recognizable even in its ruined state. Maya spotted something unmistakably human floating in the slurry, a diplomatic briefcase bearing the UN insignia. Her jaw tightened. The distraction had cost lives. Junction ahead, Fatima announced. According to the schematics, we need to access the waste removal duct that connects to the reproductive chamber. Waste removal? Lee questioned. All living organisms produce waste, Fatima replied. Even living ships. The duct turned out to be a pulsating sphincter large enough for one person at a time. Beyond it, they could see a 30-meter drop into phosphorescent slime. I'll go first, Maya decided. If it's safe, I'll signal. She squeezed through the orifice and immediately plummeted into the glowing pool below. The bioluminescent liquid cushioned her fall, but clung to her suit like sentient tar. Wiping it from her visor, she found herself in a vast chamber unlike anything they'd encountered so far. The walls were lined with translucent sacs, similar to those they'd seen earlier, but these were larger, more developed. Inside each, a hybrid embryo floated in nutrient fluid, part kralik, part something else. Thousands of them, in various stages of development. Clear, she signaled, and the others followed, dropping into the pool one by one. These aren't just future kralik warriors, Lai whispered, scanning the embryos with his tablet. They're bioweapons designed to replace Earth's population, while preserving human cognitive architecture. Our extinction and absorption in one evolutionary leap, Fatima realized. A sudden vibration rippled through the chamber. One by one, the sacs began to pulse with increased activity, the embryos within turning toward the humans as if sensing their presence. They're reacting to our genetic signature, Lai warned. Some kind of recognition protocol is activating. We need to move, Maya ordered. The reproductive chamber should connect directly to. The far wall of the chamber suddenly dilated, a massive portal opening to reveal what could only be the royal sanctum. Inside, surrounded by cyan protectors with silvery exoskeletons, was King Emperor Vrazkik. The Kralik ruler bore little resemblance to the warriors they'd encountered. His body was grotesquely swollen, translucent in sections to reveal pulsating egg sacs and neural tissues. Multiple limbs manipulated a complex apparatus that infused genetic material into developing embryos. The cyan protectors moved with disturbing synchronicity, forming a protective barrier around their monarch. Their armor gleamed with an almost metallic sheen, deflecting the light from the bioluminescent pool. Conventional weapons won't penetrate their exoskeletons, Fatima warned, studying the protectors. We need a different approach. Dr. Okafor's voice came through their comms, weak but urgent. Use sonics. Frequency 18.7 kHz. Their neural structures are vulnerable to particular sound patterns. Maya activated the sonic disruptors they'd brought as a contingency. The effect was immediate and horrifying. The cyan protectors convulsed in apparent agony, their coordinated movements dissolving into chaotic spasms. Yet despite their suffering, They continued to advance, their programming overriding their pain. In the chaos, the team split apart, each member executing their part of the rapidly adapting plan. Fatima identified structural weak points in the royal apparatus, marking them with targeting lasers. Lai interfaced with a neural node, attempting to disrupt the king's connection to his protectors. Through it all, King Emperor Vrazkik remained unnervingly still, compound eyes observing the humans with alien calculation. When Maya finally broke through the defensive line and stood before the immobilized monarch, she felt a sudden pressure in her mind, an alien consciousness pushing against her own. Your species intrigues us. You fight despite certain doom. This distinction will be preserved in the new brood asterisk. The thought wasn't spoken but implanted directly in her consciousness. Maya raised her weapon, aiming at what Dr. Okafor had identified as a vital junction in the king's neural structure. "We're not here to be preserved," she replied. "We're here to take you hostage." For the first time, genuine surprise registered in the alien's compound eyes. Maya's declaration hung in the air as the Scion protectors froze, receiving new commands directly from their monarch. The moment of hesitation was all the team needed. Fatima triggered the nanothermite charges she placed on the structural weak points of the king's life support apparatus. The controlled explosions severed key connections, triggering a ship-wide spasm. Lights flickered, gravity fluctuated, and a keening vibration resonated through every corridor. "The stasis pod," Maya shouted to Lai, who deployed Dr. Okafor's specially designed containment unit. Unlike human technology, this was a hybrid creation, partly mechanical, partly biological, lined with neuroinhibiting compounds synthesized from the Krallick's own biochemistry. As they moved to extract the King Emperor from his apparatus, a startling realization dawned on them. What they were detaching was only Vrazkik's reproductive segment. Tendrils of neural tissue extended from his body, connecting to the ship itself. "He's not just on the ship," Lai exclaimed, his neural link providing unexpected insights. "He is the ship. This is only one aspect of his body. We need to excise the cerebral node," Fatima determined, studying the biological connections with engineer's precision. "It's integrated into the neural mesh, but there's a primary junction point. There." She pointed to a pulsating mass of tissue near the ceiling of the chamber, where thousands of tendrils converged into what resembled a massive brain structure. Maya made a split-second decision. "Lai, prepare the secondary containment fields. Fatima, help me reach that node." Using her grappling equipment, Maya ascended toward the cerebral mass, while Fatima calculated the precise points where the neural connections could be severed without causing catastrophic damage to either the king or the ship. The procedure was comparable to performing brain surgery during an earthquake, as the entire vessel continued to convulse around them. Throughout the ship, the effects of their actions rippled through the Krallick hierarchy. The hive-mind connection faltered, and for the first time in their evolutionary history, individual Krallick warriors began making independent decisions. Their comms intercepted fragmented commands, contradictory orders, and signs of unprecedented confusion. "We're seeing cascading command failures throughout the fleet," Dr. Okafor reported through their comlink, monitoring Earth's intercepted transmissions. "Some vessels are preparing to attack, others are standing down." With surgical precision, Fatima guided Maya through severing the primary neural connections. The cerebral node detached with a sound like tearing velvet, dripping with bioluminescent fluid as Maya lowered it into the stasis pod alongside the reproductive segment. The King Emperor, now partially disconnected from his extended body, emanated waves of unfamiliar emotion that penetrated even the containment field's dampening effects. What the human sensed wasn't rage or hatred, but something more profound: fear of an utterly novel experience. For millennia, the Krallick rulers had existed as distributed consciousness throughout their vessels. Now Vrazkik was experiencing limitation for the first time. As the containment pod sealed, they detected new activity on the fleet's communication channels. A faction led by sub-hive mind Krazet was ordering all ships to commence Earth's destruction, calculating that sacrificing the current King-Emperor might allow his own ascension. Simultaneously, Royal Guard Commander Tikfral commanded all vessels to converge on the flagship for a rescue operation. The Krallic are turning against each other, Lai observed with astonishment. We've accomplished more than we intended, Maya noted. We didn't just capture their king, we fractured their unity. As they prepared for extraction, fighting their way toward their entry point with their royal prisoner, Fatima's sensors detected ship-to-ship weapons fire outside the flagship. Impossible, she whispered. The Krallic are firing on each other. Lai, still partially connected to the ship's communications, had a moment of inspiration. He activated the broadcast system, overriding security protocols with the king's own neural signature. Using helmet camera footage of the captive King-Emperor, he transmitted to all Krallic vessels a message in their own chemical syntax language that he'd decoded during his neural link. Your unity was your strength. Your homogeneity is now your weakness. Humans offer an alternative path. Diversity without dissolution. Strength through difference. We will return your King-Emperor when you recognize us not as subjects, but as teachers. The response was immediate. All weapons fire ceased as the unprecedented message propagated through the Krallic fleet, creating a momentary pause in the conflict that might provide just enough time for their escape. Maya secured the containment pod to her exosuit. Let's move. We've got a royal package to deliver. Escaping the flagship became a gauntlet through chaos incarnate. The living vessel, partially severed from its controlling intelligence, convulsed with autonomous responses. Passages sealed randomly, defensive antibodies flooded corridors, and disoriented Krallic warriors stumbled through the disorder, some fighting each other, others pursuing the humans with uncoordinated determination. Petrov, status. Maya demanded into her comms as they fought their way toward the extraction point. Made it to the docking level, came his weak response. Barely. Using the Guardian's acid to keep hostiles at bay. Hurry. They retrieved Petrov at a junction near their entry point. His tactical gear was in tatters, partially dissolved by alien acid. The wound on his shoulder revealed glimpses of bone, and his face was ashen from blood loss. Took your time, he managed through gritted teeth, still clutching his weapon. The Trojan horse had sustained damage during their infiltration. As they boarded, warning indicators flashed across the control panels. Life support compromised, Fatima reported, running diagnostics, and the propulsion system is operating at 40% capacity. Worse, the containment pod housing Vrazkik's cerebral mass was beginning to fail, tendrils of his consciousness seeping through the neuroinhibiting field. His thoughts pressed against their minds with increasing strength, alien concepts and emotions bleeding into human consciousness. The pod won't hold him much longer, Lai warned. Dr. Okafor, monitoring remotely, proposed something unprecedented. Don't fight the connection. Use it. Let him experience human individuality directly. What are you suggesting? Maya questioned. A controlled link between the King-Emperor and each team member. Our greatest weapon isn't our technology. It's our perspective. As Fatima and Petrov jury-rigged the failing life support systems, Maya authorized the risky procedure. One by one, team members briefly connected with the alien ruler's mind. Lai went first. Through the neural link, Vrazkik experienced childhood memories of rural China, the oppression that drove Lai to hack government systems, but also the ingenuity that flourished despite adversity. The King-Emperor experienced, for the first time, the concept of resistance against authority as a positive force. Fatima followed, sharing her internal conflict between religious tradition and scientific curiosity, the painful choice to pursue knowledge even at the cost of family bonds. For a hive-mind species that had never known internal disagreement, this experience of divided loyalty was revolutionary. Petrov, despite his injuries, insisted on participating. His battlefield memories flooded the link, the camaraderie among soldiers transcending national rivalries, the grief of losing comrades, the complex emotions of a warrior who questions his cause even as he fights for it. Finally, Maya connected. The King-Emperor absorbed her conflicted feelings about serving Earth's divided nations, the frustration of human political squabbles alongside the fierce determination to protect humanity despite its flaws. Through these connections, the humans glimpsed fragments of Krallic history, how they had engineered their own homogeneity to prevent the civil conflicts that nearly destroyed their civilization millennia ago. In eliminating dissent, they had sacrificed adaptation and creativity, never realizing they were breeding themselves into an evolutionary dead end. The journey became more perilous as they exited the flagship. Outside, Krallic vessels engaged in unprecedented conflict. Some followed sub-hive-mind Krazet's orders to destroy the humans at any cost, while others under Royal Guard Commander Tikfral attempted to secure their safe passage, believing it essential for their monarch's survival. Navigation's completely gone, Fatima announced as a near miss from energy weapons sent the Trojan horse spinning. Manual control only. She and Petrov, now working in perfect tandem despite their initial animosity, piloted the crippled vessel through the gauntlet of competing Krallic factions and Earth's desperate defense systems. Each maneuver required perfect coordination, Petrov's combat instincts complementing Fatima's engineering precision. When they finally broke through to Earth orbit, they were met not by military vessels, but by a hastily assembled diplomatic ship. On its hull were markings from Earth's major powers alongside symbols they didn't recognize. Those are emblems from subjugated species in the Krallic Empire, Lee identified, studying the unfamiliar designs. They've sensed the power shift and seized the opportunity for representation. As the Trojan horse docked with the diplomatic vessel, Maya established direct neural contact with the King-Emperor one final time. Through the link, Vrazkik communicated directly, not through translators or chemical signals, but through shared consciousness. Asterisk, we came to consume your uniqueness. We remain to learn from it. Asterisk. The statement rippled outward, transmitted instantaneously to all Krallic vessels through their partially re-established hive connection. A ceasefire solidified across the Earth orbital theater as an unprecedented concept took hold in the collective Krallic consciousness. Evolution through exchange rather than conquest. 6 months later, the United Nations Extraterrestrial Affairs Complex gleamed in the Geneva sunlight. Once a modest diplomatic facility, it had been expanded with Krallic biotechnology to create a structure that harmonized human architecture with alien organic elements, a physical manifestation of the unprecedented cooperation that had emerged from conflict. Inside the Grand Assembly Chamber, Maya observed the gathered delegates with quiet satisfaction. Representatives from 17 formerly subjugated worlds sat alongside Earth's nations, their diverse physiologies requiring specialized environmental accommodations that the adaptive building provided automatically. Dr. Okafor approached the central podium, his recovery from the extraction procedure complete, though he moved with a slight limp, a permanent reminder of his sacrifice. The Krallic genome contains dormant sequences for greater individuality and creative thinking, he explained to the assembled delegates, displaying complex genetic models on the floating holographic array. These were deliberately suppressed over millennia of selective breeding. They sacrificed diversity for unity, not realizing that true strength requires both. On the raised dais, King Emperor Vrazkik observed the proceedings. His massive form was supported by a modified life support apparatus, but his compound eyes now displayed subtle color shifts that those familiar with Krallic physiology recognized as expressions of nuanced emotion, a capacity thought impossible in their species before contact with humans. The treaty being signed was called the Covenant of Mutual Evolution, not a surrender document or peace accord, but something entirely new in galactic diplomacy. Earth would share its cultural and genetic diversity with the Krallic, while gaining access to interstellar technology and protection from other potentially hostile species. Most significantly, the 17 systems previously conquered by the Krallic would transition from subject worlds to autonomous members of a new galactic cooperative. Lai Chen, now heading Earth's Xenotechnology division, demonstrated the hybrid communication system developed from his neural link experience, allowing direct thought exchange between species without surrendering individual identity. The former hacker who once fought against authority had become the architect of a technology that bridged minds across the stars. Fatima and Petrov stood together near the engineering delegation, their relationship having evolved beyond professional respect. Petrov's reconstructed shoulder, healed with Kralik regenerative techniques, bore tattoos that integrated Russian military symbols with Saudi geometric patterns, a personal emblem of their partnership. They led the joint human-Kralik engineering team designing Earth's first true starship. As the formal ceremony concluded, Maya found herself alone with Vrazkik in an observation gallery overlooking Lake Geneva. No translators or aides accompanied them. Through their neural link, now refined and controlled, the King-Emperor shared something no Kralik had ever expressed to another species: genuine gratitude. Your species taught us that true conquest is not of territory, but of limitation, his thoughts conveyed. The Kralik spent millennia eliminating internal conflict by eliminating difference. You showed us there is another way. That disagreement need not lead to destruction. You came to consume Earth. Maya responded with characteristic directness. Instead, you're helping us reach the stars. Not because we defeated you. We couldn't have. But because humans made you question certainties your species had never challenged. A diplomatic aide approached with a datapad bearing Maya's new credentials and assignment, Ambassador Reyes. The document authorized her as Earth's representative to the newly formed Galactic Cooperative. Beyond the observation window, the first ships bearing human explorers prepared to depart for the stars, not as conquerors or refugees, but as partners in an interstellar community their actions had helped create. Among the crew were scientists, diplomats, artists, and philosophers. Humanity's diversity represented in each vessel. Reports arrived of other spacefaring species making contact, drawn by news of the unprecedented alliance. Some came with caution, others with curiosity, but all with the knowledge that something fundamental had changed in the galactic order. As Vrazkik departed for the Kralik homeworld, the first ruler in their history to return changed rather than victorious, a final thought passed through their neural link. Perhaps the greatest evolution is not physical adaptation, but the capacity to recognize value in what is unlike oneself. Maya stood at the window of the orbital diplomatic station, watching Earth rotate below while distant stars beckoned. Humanity's greatest victory wasn't capturing an alien king, but introducing an empire to something they had engineered out of their society generations ago. The revolutionary power of asking, why not, instead of accepting, because it is. The future that opened before them was neither human nor Kralik, but something new. The first true galactic civilization built not on conquest, but on the strength that emerges when diverse perspectives converge.